Hey there, Careblazers! Welcome back to the place where we talk about everything dementia. Dr. Natalie here, and in today's video, I'm going to answer the question, how is dementia diagnosed? I've been getting this question a lot lately from many different Careblazers, so today's video is going to answer that. Before I get to it, I want to welcome any new Careblazers watching. We would love to have you join the Careblazer family. All you have to do is hit that red subscribe button on your screen. It is completely free. Also, if you haven't yet downloaded the second edition of the Careblazer Survival Guide, make sure you click the link below in this video. I've updated the guide with a lot of new examples, and instead of one of my favorite survival tips, I've included 4 of my favorite survival tips. So you don't want to miss it. It's completely free. Just go ahead and click the link below this video. So, how is dementia diagnosed? That is such a simple question, but it has such a complicated answer. You would think that in 2018, with the world facing one of the largest medical epidemics that we have faced in this lifetime, there would be a simpler, easier way to explain the process of how this disease is diagnosed. But it's actually quite complicated. And to simplify matters, I actually am going to include a diagram of the process and the flow of how you get to the diagnosis later on in this video. So make sure you stay tuned to see that. So typically the primary care provider is the first point of contact. At that contact, once these concerns have been raised, the primary care provider is probably going to order some lab tests just to rule out things like vitamin deficiencies. They're probably going to ask about depression and mood, and they're going to make sure that there's no underlying infection happening, and they're going to take a look at the medications to make sure there's no medications that could be making symptoms worse. Like, we know there's a lot of medications that for older adults are pretty dangerous and can make them have fuzzy thinking or impaired memory. And if you haven't caught my video on common over-the-counter medications that can make people look like they have dementia, I'll link to that above so you can watch that after this video. All right, so after the primary care provider takes a look at all that, they may even do a brief cognitive screening. This is going to be a 30-question simple test that they can do right there in that appointment that's going to be a really quick and dirty, how is your loved one's brain functioning? How are they doing? How's their memory and attention and concentration and all these other things? If that cognitive test seems to be okay, your loved one's doctor might just keep an eye on them and want to keep a close eye but not be too concerned. If that test starts to pop up as a little questionable or really bad, at that point, the primary care provider is going to refer to a specialist, especially if their score was questionable. So if the score was questionable on that brief screening, the primary care provider will likely refer to a neuropsychologist or a geropsychologist or a neurologist. And if your loved one just performed really poorly on that 30-question screening by the PCP, it's possible your PCP may just skip that referral altogether because your loved one did so poor that they just might give the diagnosis of dementia themselves, even though those tests weren't really designed to give those tests weren't designed to give the diagnosis. They were just designed to give some information, and then you need more testing. But in practice, sometimes things aren't exactly by the book or ideal. All right, so it goes to the PCP first. The PCP oftentimes refers to a specialist. If it goes to a neuropsychologist or a geropsychologist, which is usually the most common referral when the PCP suspects somebody has dementia, your loved one's then going to get put through a series of even more testing. So consider it like a more comprehensive test than the 30-item question test that the PCP gave. This testing session will last anywhere from an hour to up to 5 hours, and it's going to involve paper and pencil testing, just verbal listening to things testing, might even have your loved one draw some items, and then that provider, that specialist, is going to score up how your loved one did, and they're going to compare your loved one's scores to other people their similar age and their similar education. So a lot of times family members have told me, but he's 86. Everybody does this poorly. And I have to say, well, we're comparing your loved one to other people who are similar to your loved one. We're not comparing your loved one to a 21-year-old who, is in college. So there's a general expectation for how somebody's brain should be working at that age and at that education level. And if your loved one starts to show up below in several different areas and goes below the cutoffs for those areas, that's how we start to come to the true diagnosis of dementia. Now, sometimes with that testing, depending on the type of dementia, that testing can really pick up some types of dementia really well, especially like Alzheimer's disease. In other cases, your loved one then might get referred for some scans, some brain scans basically, just to rule out any type of vascular disease or vascular dementia that might be happening. So then it's going to be the next step after the neuropsychologist or geropsychologist. Whew, it's kind of confusing, isn't it? So I'm not surprised to hear that many of you have this question about how dementia is diagnosed. Not only is the process a little bit confusing, but the diagnosis can come from different providers. It could come from the primary care provider or from the neuropsychologist or from the neurologist. And not everybody who gets the diagnosis of dementia has to have a brain scan. Not everybody who gets a diagnosis of dementia has to see a neurologist. So the process is different for everybody, but there are basically three main things that every doctor, no matter what type they are looking for when it comes to the dementia diagnosis. Number one, they need a clinical interview to ask what's been going on in their life and how they're functioning. Number two is the specific type of functioning. They should be taking a look at something we call activities of daily living. Things like getting dressed, eating, managing finances, driving, talking on the phone, cooking. So those basic activities of daily living are a big focus for dementia because there has to be some sort of decline in those areas to actually get the disorder or get the diagnosis. And then third, some type of testing, some type of paper, pencil, memory test should be occurring to come to that diagnosis. So I know it's a bit of a confusing process, but I hope this video helped clear it up a little bit. Let me know what follow-up questions you might have after watching this video. And again, as always, Careblazers, leave me any questions you have below any of my videos. I do read all of the questions, even if I'm not able to respond to them immediately. You might just see your question featured on an upcoming episode of Careblazers TV. Before you get off of YouTube, make sure you download that second edition of the Careblazers Survival Guide so that you can get your updated tips for how to best take care of your loved one with dementia and take care of yourself. All right, bye. Yeah. Be sure to stay to that. Is diet. All right. All you have to do